All right. Welcome to another episode of My New Normal podcast. We are here with Kate Nowlan. I'm so excited to talk to you today. First, we're going to get into some of the things that we have upcoming. We have our adaptive trainer courses that are in person. We're excited that our very first one here in San Diego is sold out. That's actually happening this weekend, but we have several courses in 2020. So we have another one in San Diego coming up at the beginning of the year, and then a few others. So check out our website to see if we have one near you. If not, we do have, we've partnered with the Ready State, and there is an online adaptive trainer course that Dr. T did with Max Conserva, and you can get 15% off of that with the discount code MyNewNormal15. So if you're not able to make it to one of the in-person courses, that online training course is great to learn how to adapt movements for people with either an upper limb or lower limb impairment, or in a chair, or have balance considerations. It's a great course, so check that out online. Our big sponsor that we are going to talk about is Hylete. They have a 40% off discount for first-time users. It's New Normal 40. Again, all of these codes will be in the show notes. And Hylete is a fitness lifestyle brand founded on the core belief that a company's impact can and should live beyond the products they sell. As they build on a foundation of innovation and quality, their energy is equally focused on inspiring the well-being of our community. I love Hylete. I'm wearing my favorite tights right now that it's chilly. I have my longer tights on, so they're nice and cozy here. We also have RX Smart Gear. They have a 15% off code, which is NHLBRX. So thank you to our sponsors for helping make this podcast happen. So leading into that, I'm so excited to talk to you, Kate, about everything you have going on, both in working with Hylete as well as Graced by Grit. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
So yeah, thanks for having me. I'm really, really happy to be here and appreciate it. And gosh, where do I begin? So right now I am the VP of Hylete Experience at Hylete. And I joined the team about 18 months ago because the company that I started, which is called Graced by Grit, was acquired by Hylete. So Graced by Grit, because you did such a great introduction with Hylete, I don't need to define that. But Graced by Grit was a women's athletic apparel brand. We manufactured all of our products in the United States. And we grew a community of women that were really passionate about the storytelling piece of life that I think, certainly on this podcast, and something that I think people are more and more interested in is the stories behind the people. And we did a lot of that because of the name in particular. So Graced by Grit really was about how every woman has these gritty moments in her life that define her. And it's how you get through those moments that really, truly do define you. And the gritty moments actually can become your grace based on how you look at everything, right? And so through Graced by Grit, we made, product was first and foremost, but telling stories, using authentic women to share their stories, their tough moments in life that defined them. And obviously, a lot of people turn to athletics and sport to push through some tough times and to really literally sweat it out. And so, we wanted to provide apparel that supported that and also helped women to look their very best, perform their very best. So that's what I did with Graced by Grit. I grew up in upstate New York, so I'm an East Coast girl at heart, went to school in Massachusetts, and, had a little bit of an unconventional path to leading to starting a business. I certainly never thought I would start an athletic apparel company. My background was, bachelor's degree in sociology and psychology. I love people, and I think, that lends itself very well in all the different jobs that I've had and all the different businesses that I've worked at. So that's a little bit about me. I also have 2 teenage daughters. So I could certainly say one of my grittier moments is raising teenage girls.
Well, that and, running a company, I can only imagine all of the challenges that you've faced along the way.
Totally. It's funny. I don't know which I would say is harder, raising teenagers or running a business. I mean, sometimes the business I would turn to in moments of frustration with my children because it felt easier.
Yeah. What are some of the things that have, I guess, helped you through those tough moments the most, whether like fitness or support network? Like, what do you feel like in your toughest times has been kind of your saving grace and has helped you through those tough times?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I certainly fitness has been something I've turned to at different times throughout my life. I grew up as an athlete, so I swam and I played softball as a child and all through high school. And I definitely turned to running. Ironically, I was a swimmer, but discovered running in my late 20s, and that really quite literally became the way I would run off steam. So, fitness has definitely been part of that, and I turn to it still. Just the other day on the weekend, my family was driving me nutty. I had a lot of work that I had to do, and I went and I did a Pilates class just to sort of get that focus and sweat out and get through it. But I think having a network of people has been what I have relied the most upon. Being young and a young parent, I wouldn't have been able to succeed as I did without the support of the close family and friends that I had. And through business, and even now, looking to mentors and people that can offer advice, I seek help, and I'm not afraid at this point in my life, I'm 40 years old, to ask for it when I need it. But that was something that was really hard for me. At the younger version of myself, I didn't want to ask for help. I was too proud for that. But nowadays, I'm all about asking for help when I don't know how to, confront a situation or deal with some business development or pivot that we have to make. Seeking advice from others is something, and support really too for myself has been something that I've turned to a lot.
Yeah. That's awesome. So how did you find yourself? What's a little bit of your backstory as far as the work you used to do, and how did you lead into, running a company and getting this started? Because that's such an awesome thing to hear that you've been working on and working at. It's awesome.
Yeah. So what led to that? I mean, I was, like I said, I had a different path. So when I was a junior in college, I discovered that I was pregnant. And certainly not the plan for me, at least. That wasn't the plan. I wanted to, and in fact, ironically, I always said as a child, I was never having children. So that changed real fast. And so, 20-year-old young woman, pregnant in college, junior in college. And all of a sudden my life just was, I was staring down a totally different road than I had anticipated. And so that, ironically, really, for me, put a fire in me to finish college first and foremost. So I did graduate just 8 months later than I would have, with a baby in tow, and really proud of that moment. Yeah. And then, as a young parent, as a new parent, you're always, tasked with figuring out how to have that balance. Is, what's more important, working, being at home, what financially makes sense for your family. Or, I was fortunate. I got married at 6 months pregnant, so I did have a partner. And so I always took odd jobs, and, most of them would actually go back to athletics. So I helped launch a swim program at a private swim club. And then I started a master's swim program. So really was digging into that space where I had a lot of experience with it as an athlete, and discovered coaching in that process. And then, as a young parent too, trying to just make ends meet, I was picking up odd jobs here and there. I was really good at organizing. And so I started a business called Absolutely Organized with another woman, where we would organize women or people's homes and small businesses, everything from aesthetics to literally cleaning drawers out, helping organize file cabinets, setting up offices to be more efficient for productivity. And so really was thriving in that space, and then moved to California. So I was doing that all on the East Coast. My husband at the time took a job out in California, so we moved the family out here. And shortly thereafter, another gritty moment, I was going through a divorce with 2 young girls, and had to up my game in terms of, how much I was working to support my family. And so, again, went back to athletics. I was actually looking for my daughter for a swim team, and stumbled upon Boys and Girls Club in Solana Beach, and was asking a lot of questions about their program. And they were like, well, how do you know all this about swimming? I said, oh, I was a coach. I started a program. I said, we're looking for a coach. And it was, that serendipitous moment, and it was perfect. I could bring my kids to the program. They could be in the after school care there while I was coaching. They could come on the deck whenever they wanted. So as a mom, that was, really valuable to be able to work with a company that supported me as a parent. And so I did that. And then as my brain works, it's organization. And I was sitting there going, okay, this office needs some help. And just, the back end of the office. So started to take on some office administration and tasks. And then they had some fundraisers that were really successful there. And so I started to lead those fundraisers, start to lead all the parent volunteers. And we had some really, really great events that I was able to spearhead and raise a lot of money for the Boys and Girls Club Aquatic Center. And in that process, met hundreds of families within the community, which of course networking to me is something that I constantly tell younger people. It's all about networking and knowing how to network too. And you never know when people are going to come in your life and what they can offer or what you can offer them. And ironically met my business partner, Kimberly Cacavo, because her son was on the team and she was looking for a swim coach for herself because she had decided to do her first triathlon. And so, simultaneously to working at the Boys and Girls Club to make ends meet, I was coaching women's running groups on the side. I took that passion of coaching, my passion of running at the time, and I started coaching women's running groups, individuals, and these group runs. And so I said, oh, I'm your woman. I will definitely coach you. And in that very first run, it was a distraction tactic for her for sure, to try to talk to me, to not get her to push so hard, because she literally gave me like 3 weeks to get her ready for this triathlon, which we did accomplish. But she said, gosh, I love those shorts on you. It would be so interesting to create an athletic apparel brand, because she wasn't seeing out there what she wanted to see. She bought these fancy clothes before we did our first run. That was her very first thing she did. She didn't even replace her shoes. It was more important to her how she looked. And that was the conversation that started, of the psychology behind that. Why are women, purchasing all of these expensive, clothes? Because they want to look great. And if they look great, then they're going to get out there and perform better. And what was that all about? And, we were seeing one main player that really had taken over the women's market, and that was Lululemon at the time, and really looked at their success and said, what would we do different? And so we talked a little bit about it. Then, I'm a coach. I'm working at the Boys and Girls Club. She had just dissolved a partnership and had a totally different, extensive business background. And so it was just a conversation. Fast forward 3 years, I had left Boys and Girls Club in that process, taken a job that I hated. I was so bad at it. It was an office manager for a very successful small business in downtown San Diego. I barely saw my kids. I commuted. I wore business casual clothes. I've never had been in, heels in my life. My feet hurt all the time. It was very rote work. Great job. It was just a great company. It just was not the right fit for me. And I think oftentimes we go through those moments where it's like we realize the things that don't work before we feel the things that do.
Yeah.
And so I was fired from that job, and I called all my former clients, Kimberly being one of them, and said, I'm really interested in figuring out my next step. And I know we had talked about starting an athletic apparel brand. What are the chances of us really actually being able to do that? And so that was, May of 2012. And we spent the summer really researching it. What was the market like? How would we source fabrics? What would we create together that would be different and unique? And what would be that story behind it? Because we understood that ultimately it was not just about product being really great, but it was about a branding game. And so we launched Graced by Grit in January 2013. And it was, right out of the gate, we had 4 products that we were testing with a bunch of women that were running a half marathon here in San Diego to get their feedback. We used very exquisite, high-end, high-performance and compression fabrics from Italy. We had these 4 products. We got the feedback. The feedback was phenomenal. We did our first run in San Diego while simultaneously manufacturing in China, because everyone that we talked to, industry experts, which there are a lot here in San Diego, we were in a fortunate space. We talked to them and they said, you have to produce in China. So we did do it, but we were also producing here and got to experience both of those and really felt most comfortable with our production in the United States because of our ability to go down there and check in and build these relationships so close to home. We were both moms, had kids the same age. The thought of having to travel overseas was daunting, and leaving our families for an extensive amount of time. And so, from there, it was really just, we invested first and foremost, obviously, in those core products, and then it was branding. And the branding was, what is our story? What's Kimberly, my story? And our story was, we'd gone through these gritty moments in life, and that not just us, but every single woman we knew had gone through these tough moments. And so they were graced by grit. And so that really launched the brand. And so from the day we launched, we got up and running in about 9 months with,
awesome.
about 10 products. And from there really built the company over the next 5 years, hiring incredible women, building an incredible team, spreading the word about Graced by Grit nationwide through events and what we called fit shops. So they were like little trunk shows at people's houses. We had pop-up stores within a store, and then we mostly sold primarily online. To really get to get the word out there was all of this grassroots marketing that would feed people to our website. And we were at a pivot point too. It was another gritty moment for our company. 5 years in, we were struggling to raise capital, which is really a very frequent story you'll hear from women founders, that they have these great businesses that are doing great, but they're women that have started them, and so they struggle to raise capital. And so we were fortunate enough to run into the CEO of a company that was right in our backyard that primarily focused on men's athletic apparel. They started about a year ahead of us, and we shared a common investor. And we talked to him about, how's your women's line doing? This is what we're doing. Is there, an opportunity here? And for me, it was certainly a light bulb of, this is right in our backyard. And, what you think, again, this goes back to sometimes like you think, oh, the life's going to go like this. And it took a total different detour where it was, maybe Graced by Grit on its own is going to raise capital, but we can take all that we've done and help another brand to grow it even bigger and better. And is that an opportunity? And so we approached the CEO again, and I laid it all out on the table, and he said, yeah, no, thank you. We're good. We've got a great women's line that's growing. In fact, you've actually made me look deeper into it, and I've realized that we're not even putting enough resources towards it. There's so much potential here. And I walked away deflated, like, here's another gritty moment that I'm going through, and what are we going to do with our company? And a week later, I called him back up and I said, you're wrong. You're wrong. There's something here, and we need to figure out how to make it work. And so we did. We got a deal done, and we closed it in about a month. And then I joined the team as the first female executive at Hylete, and very much unintentional on their end by having a bunch of men running the company. But certainly they're all progressive in believe in equality and all of these things. It was just they had all known each other in the past, and so they got back together. They're sort of like the band got together to create a great brand. And then I came in, and quite literally it's been serendipitous from there on out. I brought 4 team members with me. One's on product and a couple are on customer experience. And we have been just serendipitously getting along, helping build their women's product line, bringing over products that were former Graced by Grit products. And in lieu of, Graced by Grit ending, we created a foundation called the Graced by Grit Foundation that helps young women going to college for athletics and academics through a scholarship fund. And Hylete sponsors that with 1% of all of the women's products go to the foundation to support the scholarship fund. So we launched that application for the scholarships for 2020, January 1st. So really excited about that. And, lots of passion that goes into a foundation, but it's really been a fun experience of being able to take all of my expertise of building a company and be at a bigger brand and helping them to build it this next level of building. And, also, take my experience as a woman, not just with product, but with management, and be able to be part of a team that I think, we could be $100 million brand, and we're not afraid to say it. So it's been a fun process, certainly met with lots of challenges, but that's really where how I got from being 20 to 40.
Yeah, that's so awesome. And I love hearing that journey of, there were a lot of bumps along the way, but, and there were probably points I would imagine where you're like, what am I doing? Am I even on the right path? Every time an obstacle comes up, it makes you question, am I doing the right thing? Is this obstacle here to tell me I need to stop, or do I keep pushing? And so the fact that you kept pushing to get to where you are now is incredible. And it's inspiring because there's, everybody hits those times in life, whether it's professionally, personally, whatever it is, we hit those moments where it's like, I don't know if I should keep going. Like, is this a sign that I need to pivot and find another direction?
Absolutely.
So I think it's a matter of knowing what you're good at and what you're strong at, and knowing that that is where you're supposed to be and what you're supposed to be working on. And the fact that you were so passionate about it and knew that this was something that needed to continue on. And it wasn't like, well, this is the end of that brand. It was a fun run. But knowing that you and your company were worth fighting for, to get that partnership to continue to grow, to make ultimately, that partnership is going to take off and be something bigger than either thing would have been on its own. So, that's an awesome journey, and I can't wait to see where, the company continues to grow. I don't know if it's just being in Southern California or the San Diego area. I see Hylete stuff everywhere. So I feel like it is already a really big brand. I do think, being in this area, I see it a lot more, but I love it. And everybody I talk to and see in it, they love it. And I think, like you mentioned, it's not just about, oh, well, the clothes are nice, but having something that, a brand that you can really stand behind as far as what they stand for. Like, I've always loved on the website the supportive military. That's, something that I love seeing. And so that's just another notch where I'm like, oh, wow, yeah, that makes me love this company all that much more.
To your point, I mean, I think that's where, I really fell in love with Hylete. It wasn't my baby, but it was something that had been created with the same foundation, in the sense that it was about the give too, right? So it wasn't just about capitalism. It was about conscious capitalism and people over profit and all of those things that I think really resonate with people of our generation. And yeah, our charity work has been something that I find really attractive with the company, and something that resonates specifically, to your point, with military and first responders. We give a lot of support to them. We've got the Grace by Grit Foundation. We have Operation Underground, which helps with sex slavery. And so, and then we've got Team Rubicon, which is getting out there and really helping as a first response. And then Barbells for Bullies, which is a nonprofit that hosts fitness events, and that are in there, they create awareness for animal rescues. And then Scratch My Belly, which is also an animal rescue, dog animal rescue, which ironically, we have about 4 dogs in our office that have all been rescued. So we've got this, like, we live it too internally. And I think that's where, the team at Hylete has really been representative of the community that we serve. And I think that speaks to the authenticity of brands specifically, that succeed, and that resonate with people over a long period of time. You're more willing to go back to a brand that you feel is connected to you, that understands you, that is more like you, and has, the ethos of who you are. And so that's where I've seen a lot of the success being part of Hylete. And to your point, it wasn't my baby that started, but it feels like it. There's just as much passion there now for me to be part of this brand, because it has that same foundation.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so now in this role with Hylete and how things have changed, what does your new normal look like? It's a lot has changed over the last 20 years for you. And so, what's life like now? And yeah, we'll stop there. I have another question for you, but I want to hear how things are going now.
It's interesting. I would say, new normal, and on a personal level, when I was running Grace by Grit, it was busy time with kids. And I frankly didn't see my kids a whole lot. It was hard. I mean, you're running a business. I was traveling a lot. Events want founders at the events to make them successful. We knew we could pull more revenue if we were there. So I was on the road a significant amount of time. And when I wasn't, we had a storefront, we had pop-ups. I was constantly bebopping around. I mean, my poor kids, I think they saw me, attached to a phone for 6 years straight of just, that's all I was doing was working. And now my new normal is actually, I'm around a lot more, because I am a VP at a company versus, a founder, and we're at this next level too, where we've we're not having to just try all these things to make it successful. We have a really clear path and vision. So that's a really positive new normal where I feel very present in my children and my family's lives. And I feel like there's a better balance for me. It's hard to sustain that startup mentality. So that, that has been great personally and obviously on a professional level too, where I feel like I can give as much to my family when I'm home and I'm not tied to a computer or a phone, no matter where I am, and I can take that true break. And then, the other piece, the new normal, is working with men. I mean, it's been a really interesting, challenge, and it's been really fun because it's something that is so new for me, where I was running a business that really was all about women, like all about the women's storytelling, all about working with women. We only hired women, and we only made women's apparel. So there was, very little room to talk about men, and that wasn't what it was about. So now I'm navigating relationships with men that it is just different. And I'm navigating, how do I present myself as a strong leader within this company and being the only woman here? And, all those, great books, like Lean In, I really, those resonate with me now in a way that they wouldn't have prior because I'm living that. And it's, for me, that's the challenge and the fun stuff. Like I really like that. But it's not always easy. and that new normal is definitely like waking up every day and sort of having to go, okay, what are my priorities and what do I want to tackle? And, and how do I communicate best to get where I need to go? And that has definitely been a shift in terms of how I do that.
Yeah. So what advice would you give somebody maybe in your shoes that they're in that kind of gritty period of whether they're starting up a new project or they're trying to build a new business from scratch and they're, in that phase where they're doubting themselves and having a really hard time. Based on your experience, what advice would you give somebody in your shoes early on of when you were trying to get things figured out and get it off the ground?
So, so I wrote a book too with my business partner, by the way, called Graced by Grit, which is the entrepreneurial guides to starting a business with power, passion, and purpose. And so we talk about this a little bit in the book. So it's an interesting question because I don't know that much has changed for me in this answer. It's really, I think, making your list, knowing how to prioritize and chipping away every single day at it. And it's not about, this sprint. And that's really, when you talk about the word grit in general, like grit isn't about just getting to the finish line as fast as you can. Grit is about a marathon. And it's about having to dig deep, and it's hard, and then it feels good, and then it's hard again. And it's knowing that that is part of this cycle. These ups and downs and ebbs and flows are part of the deal. And it's about every day feeling like you're chipping away and making those lists and knowing how to prioritize. I think that's something that's really important too. Not being stuck to email all day, having your list that's really important, and knowing when to prioritize your email. And also, I mean, I think, calling on other people to say, what do I do in this moment? I'm struggling right now, or I just need a break and I need you to just let me vent, or I need you to just take a walk with me, to get this out. I think that there's a ton of value in that piece of being able to take a step back and get a better perspective of what's actually going on in that tough moment. And relying upon people that you trust to help navigate those situations.
Yeah.
It's huge. Yeah.
I agree. And I think for women especially, it's I think to some degree we always feel like I kind of need to prove myself that I can do this. And like you mentioned earlier, I don't need to ask for help. I can do this. I need to show that I can do this. Otherwise, I'm going to be seen as weak. But I mean, and this goes for people in general, not just women, of knowing like ultimately you're going to be stronger, you're going to be a better leader, and better at whatever you're pursuing if you take that time to ask for help. Not only if you need that support socially or emotionally, but if you're stuck in whatever it is professionally, knowing like there are people who have come before me and done this and been successful. Like you may or may not have access to those people, but knowing whatever, you're able to reach out, whether it's somebody
and there are people that have failed too.
Yeah.
Before you, and those people can be sometimes just as valuable to reach out to and go, what would you have done differently?
Absolutely.
Where was the mess up in your head? Where was the failure? And what did you learn from that? Because there's almost more value in those moments,
Yeah.
right? In terms of learning than in the successes.
Yeah, that's huge. And being able to be vulnerable and ask for that help and knowing it's okay to reach out. And actually, I would say 99% of the time, it's going to be better to reach out and ask for that help, ask for that advice, than to try to do things on your own and figure it out. Because ultimately, you know, there have always been people that come before that have done it, whether they failed or were successful, but there's no reason to reinvent the wheel when you can talk to somebody who's been through it and can help. So yeah, that's huge. And I love hearing your story and everything you've been through to get to where you are. And like I said, I'm really excited to see where things are going. Do y'all have any upcoming projects that you can share about that you're excited about, whether, with any of the foundations or within Hylete, of things that you're working on that you're excited about?
Yeah, so we've got a lot of stuff in the works for 2020. We've got some great new products that are coming out. Hylete has had a gritty year. Also, we were positioned to go public and through a traditional S1 filing. And listed on the New York Stock Exchange American, and because of macro conditions of the market, I mean, you've heard what's happened with WeWork. People are very hesitant to invest in small cap companies, specifically in this space. And so we had to pivot and reroute ourselves and go back to actually what we do best, which is raising capital in our own terms. And in doing that, we crowdfund, which is an interesting, it's interesting in terms of raising capital and something that's relatively new and not unheard of, but for a lot of people that are starting businesses, something, to tap into and to look into, because it allows the average person to invest in a company that they believe in. You don't have to be an accredited investor like you used to, which is, you have to have a net worth of $1 million and an annual income of 250,000, which eliminates, much of the population in the United States from being able to invest.
Right.
Crowdfunding, which was passed through the Jobs Act, allows people to invest, and with, and $500 you can invest in a company. And so Hylete had successfully raised capital through crowdfunding over the past 6 years. And when we pulled the plug for our traditional filing to go public, we went right back to crowdfunding and raised $1 million in 6 days, because the demand was there and because the community believes in us. And so for us, it's taking that community feedback. So now we've raised that $1 million and we're on a path for 2020 to focus on profitability and focus on, clean up the balance sheet a little bit, which, those are all very technical terms in business, but they will help make us more attractive for a public offering. But that public offering is doing what we do best, which is Reg A, which is crowdfunding to IPO. So versus trying to go out there and get family offices and institutional money, which has been the traditional way to raise capital to go on a public market, we're going to the community. We're going to the individual and saying, help us get to where we need to be. So there's a liquidity event for all of these 5,000 investors that we currently have. And those investors have been the best investors, as we call them. So they're the people that are out there and they're wearing the product, they're talking about it, they're promoting it, and they have a stake in the game. So they have a vested interest in doing that. And so, and it's really who we are. We're community built, backed, and driven. So that's everything from our fundraising to the products that we make. We are survey driven, data driven as a company. So we're constantly sending out surveys to our community and asking, what products do you love? What do you like specifically about that short? What don't we make that you want us to make? What activities are you participating in? So we have all of this data that allows us to create and produce products that people want to see. So 2020 is really an exciting year because it's taking a lot of that data and people are going to see those products on the line, which we are thrilled with. Graced by Grit, January 1st, the applications open for the scholarship. So we're fortunate to be able to provide one scholarship next year to somebody going off to college. So that'll be a part of our storytelling in terms of understanding that women that participate in athletics, the longer they participate, the greater chance of success they have professionally. 96% of women that are in the C-suite today participate in college athletics. And so I think that says something about the foundation and what you learn, the values you learn by being on a team, the strength, the confidence that you get as a woman. And so that's something we certainly want to promote. Our charity programs, we're really interested in partnering more with them. So you'll see a lot more in terms of product offering from t-shirts. So when we sell a t-shirt that has like Team Rubicon on it, 50% goes back to the charity. And so doing more conversations. And then part of 2020 for us is also really looking at what is it that, who are we now that we're sort of a little grown up? You know, we're 8 years in, and what does that look like? And, you know, we've defined ourselves, we're this rebel with a cause. And so we are these innovative thinkers that we don't want to just be the norm. We don't want to just do the norm. We want to think outside the box with the products that we make, the causes that we support. And so we're rebels with the cause, though. So it's always about, you know, that foundation of being conscious, being empathetic, supporting the people that support us, and that being the ecosystem that we all live in. And so it's, you know, we've got lots of fun campaigns that we're working on to highlight that. And going back to, I think, a little bit more, because this IPO didn't happen where we were anticipating an influx of cash that would allow us to create, excuse my dog, he's really excited about it, but where we would have been able to create a lot more products, and we have those queued up. What we're looking at is who are we at the core? And who we are at the core is we're, you know, a training performance brand. So we make those core products for people to go out there and train and sweat their butts off. And so that's what you'll see in 2020. And we're staying really focused on that, which feels great.
Yeah, that's so exciting. And it's awesome to hear how excited you are about it. And that, again, speaks volumes that you're at the level that you are in the company. And it's not just, oh, you know, we had this deal going through and it's about the money. Like, the passion is there. And that, I think, is huge. And whatever you're doing, you know, in life, and especially in work, like, you want to enjoy what you're doing and be invested in it and believe in what you're doing. Because otherwise, like, what are you doing with your life? It's spending all, like, the majority of your waking hours doing something that you don't care about. And I get, to some degree, you know, there's going to be people that they have to have a job to pay the bills to support what they love doing and support their family. But I think finding that passion in something that you're doing is huge. And the fact that you've found it in your work and it is really conveyed in the way that you talk about it is awesome to hear. And I love hearing about, you know, people that are so passionate about their work and continuing to grow and supporting the community. I think that's huge. So thank you for everything that you do. And I'm excited, like I said, to see how things continue to grow and change. And I'm sure there's, just like we have it at Movement RX, things have really shifted in ways that we didn't expect, in a good way. And I think it's going to continue to grow in that way. And I'm sure things like that will come up for Hylete as well. You know, you're going to find opportunities that you never even knew were on the horizon. And it doesn't necessarily cause a pivot, but it's like, wow, I had no idea this opportunity was there. And it's always so exciting when things like that pop up in life of, man, I never could have imagined this thing coming up. And now we have this opportunity to grow in a way that I didn't even know was possible. So
absolutely.
Very exciting. So thank you so much for hopping on. I really enjoyed talking with you, and I can't wait to see what things are to come in 2020. That's so exciting for you guys. And just a reminder for those of you listening, we have our VA class, the Adaptive Strength and Conditioning, that is now supported by the VA. So any veterans with a disability rating and good standings with the VA are able to come to this class for free. If you're here local in San Diego, join us on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Fridays from 10:30 to 11:30. We will have a link to info about that class and everything we've talked about today in the show notes, including all of those lovely discount codes from the beginning. So we hope to see you at the class in San Diego. And before we sign off, Kate, are there any places that you want to share that people can find you on the socials, any websites or things that you want to share with the listeners, and we'll link to all of that in the show notes.
Yeah, absolutely. So they can follow along Hylete. It's at Train Hylete, which is our Instagram handle. And then go to hylete.com and you can check out our website and use the code that we've provided for you guys. And what's cool about it is if you look up top, there's a little community tab and you can start to see all the charities that we work with. We have a really cool blog that we've put together that's actually curated content from our community. So we ask trainers within our community about specific topics and they write the content. So these are really experts in the space that are creating recipes for the holidays that are super healthy or keto healthy. As we all talk about, we talk about, topics like intermittent fasting or the best way to do a deadlift. And so really cool things that, are educational and get you in touch with who the community is at Hylete. And then obviously the product first and foremost. It's a great time to get your holiday shopping done, certainly with the discount code that you provided for people. And, any questions that they have for me, they can link up with me on LinkedIn, Kate Nowlan, Nowlan, and I'm happy to connect with anyone.
Awesome. Well, thanks again so much for joining us. And we will see all of you listeners, or I guess you'll hear us next episode. See ya.